service that offers you the largest selection of payout locations in the Gambia. Supersonics Money Transfer. We are currently in 34 African countries and counting, giving you quality money remittance services that are second to none. Visit the Google Play Store or the Apple Store today to download the Supersonics Money Transfer app and enjoy excellent money transfer services only with Supersonics.
Daliba!
Aho! Moro!
Bari biba ma diari mbakel.
Konkoto murkoto le konkoto kuto koto purkoto moro.
Muto nyati man nin kolko. Sila koto wakata sate koto.
Prince Kuyate le mamanta nan entertainment. Wala be mbake la semeka jane wori ka fa me kora awo. Kala purata enti. Mbe korontoro kanne ala karam fa janni woni.
Yenyun kora bemba minda kanake Gambia jang. Sato dao da tata jenkama de ka fa kora awo. Amma kan man tenkunno banko ka iko banko nyaton ko minketa adama baruti anala numonyo first lady
Fatma baba
ye nyim ben kere sika ya ditel la ka nyaton ko Amadou Kora wo fanam be jele don ajaratu fatu sonko bakaw
Kora mansa
ni aje be kumbola tumbun ko to e salon ko dal ko lon le sabu Kora manke bi fenti
baraka
ha
ngoy batar la bew
mbeje ko dura anda mu be mele neti.
If you want to receive monies from UK, Europe, USA, Canada, Switzerland, and the rest of the world, Supersonics Money Transfer has got you covered. With the largest payout network in the Gambia, you can now receive your monies anywhere you are, from Kartong to Koina, with less hassle. Yes! You can receive monies from your family and friends in UK, Europe, USA, Canada, Switzerland, and the rest of the world with our safe, secure, fast, and convenient service that offers you the largest selection of payout locations in the Gambia.
To sexual assault, sexual exploitation, stalking, and sexual harassment. GPU also prohibits discrimination and harassment on the basis of sex, pregnancy, sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. In meeting this objective, GPU will closely collaborate with media houses and media organizations and individual journalists, as well as other relevant stakeholders, including the Gambia government and the private sector, towards addressing issues of sexual violence. All complaints of sexual harassment will be taken seriously and treated with urgency and respect in confidence. No one will be victimized for making a sexual harassment complaint. Any member who violates this policy will face appropriate action. Based on the seriousness of the offense, disciplinary action may include verbal or written reprimand, suspension or revocation of membership, among other appropriate sanctions. A media worker who is aware of an incident of sexual harassment and fails to report it is in violation of this policy. This policy draws inspiration from the Constitution and relevant laws of the Gambia, including the Sexual Offences Act 2013, the Criminal Code, the Labour Act 2007, the Women's Act 2010, as well as the Domestic Violence Act 2013.
Sorry, which constitution? Can you be more specific? Is it the constitution or the constitution of the government? I would suggest if this GP constitution, let it mention the GP constitution, or any other constitution that you guys go reference to. The 1997 constitution should be specific. I would think it is the GP constitution.
Okay.
Maybe the GPU can clarify, state and DOT. Yes, as photos. Okay.
Policy statement, last paragraph. Rationale for the policy. The United Nations Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women has stated in its concluding observations on the combined 4th and 5th periodic reports of the Gambia in 2015 that violence against women is widespread in the Gambia. This reality is further buttressed by the fact that sexual violence is one of the least, if not the least, reported cases at police stations and among the least convicted cases in the courts in the Gambia. Due to the culture of silence engendered by deep-seated socio-cultural beliefs in most cases, victims, witnesses, and families do not report cases of sexual violence. Not only those reporting such cases bring a huge burden on victims who are usually not believed and even blamed for causing the violation, but also most institutions in the Gambia lack sexual violence policies and mechanisms to address the issue. Sexual violence takes place in homes, workplaces, and in the community. Globally and in the domestic sphere, there is increasing outcry against acts of sexual harassment. The research undertaken by the GPU reveals that sexual harassment occurs in the media workplaces. The Gambia Press Union therefore wishes to take a proactive stance to address this menace in order to secure a safe, dignifying, and enabling work environment for its members. The policy further recognizes the equality of men and women and the need to ensure that no one is discriminated against or violated on account of one's sex. We okay there? Sexual harassment policy. The overall objective of this policy is to promote and secure safe spaces for men and women in the media to do their work without abuse, fear, and discrimination. It will seek to expose and confront in order to end sexual violence in the workplace for media workers. It provides a framework for the prevention, protection, and correction of sexual harassment cases for all media workers in the course of their work. The specific objectives include: 1, to foster an environment in which all members of the media are safe, secure, and free from sexual misconduct in any form. 2, to raise awareness about sexual violence among media workers to be able to understand, desist from, and expose sexual violence. 3, to encourage and strengthen media houses, their managers and editors to become champions in the fight against sexual harassment. 4, to enhance professional and ethical standards within the media. 5, to promote media coverage of sexual harassment as a means of combating the menace in society. 6, hashtag. I get the policy. The provisions in this policy apply to all media workers on full-time, part-time, or on contract, and students and staff of MAJAC. The policy also applies to non-media workers insofar as such persons harass or are harassed by a media worker in the line of duty of the media worker. The policy can happen once or many times and may include physical, virtual, verbal, or non-verbal actions. This form of harassment may make the victim feel offended, humiliated, or intimidated. Most sexual harassment is subjective and circumstantial, hence there is no definitive and exhaustive list of inappropriate behaviors. Verbal. Verbal sexual harassment include, among others, sexual pranks, teasing, jokes, verbal abuse of a sexual nature, sexual propositions, lewd remarks and threats, condescending or paternalistic remarks, requests for any type of sexual favor, calling someone by a sexually oriented nickname, turning work discussions to sexual topics. Whistling, obscene gestures, stalking, voyeurism, content in letters, note, facsimiles, emails, photos, text messages, tweets, and internet postings, or other forms of communication that are sexual in nature and offensive. Physical. Physical sexual harassment includes unwelcome, unwanted physical contact, physical touching of a sexual nature such as tickling, pinching, patting, brushing up against, hugging, cornering, kissing, giving sexual suggestive gifts, making sexual suggestive gestures, fondling, and forced sexual intercourse or assault. Use job-related threats or rewards to solicit sexual favors, among others. Online sexual harassment, also known as cyber harassment, cyber or online abuse, is defined as unwanted sexual conduct through any digital platform. It includes a wide range of behaviors that use technology to share digital content such as images, videos, posts, messages, pages, comment sections, etc. on a variety of different platforms, private or public, among others. Being sent explicit images the user did not ask for, receiving vulgar messages about your looks or sexual behavior, unwanted sexual attention, graphic gender harassment, sexual coercion, cyber stalking, doxing, sexualized trolling, non-consensual pornography, unwanted sexualization, sexual bullying. Okay. Consensual sexual relations. Oh. Consensual relationships between media workers outside the workspace could be defined as dating or sexual relationships willingly undertaken by the parties. The definition does not apply to relationships formed as a result of coercion or intimidation. In the event of the end of a relationship between media workers, any unwanted sexual behavior will fall under this sexual harassment policy and will require appropriate actions to be taken. I put that there. It is advised that media organizations develop their code of ethics on superior officers dating their subordinates or colleagues dating in the organization. Human resource managers' responsibilities. In order to fully realize Objective 4 of promoting professionalism and enhancing ethical standards, a sexual harassment preventive environment must be enhanced. To fulfill this objective, human resource managers of media organizations and houses should ensure the following. Clearly stipulate the qualifications for employment in any post, explicitly outline job descriptions, include in the orientation package for new employees a training on the organization's policy on sexual harassment and the organization's mechanism for reporting violations. Include in employees' appointment letters the signing of an undertaking to eschew sexual harassment. Use wall posters as advocacy material against sexual harassment. Outline unambiguously the criteria for promotion and procedure for sanctioning erring staff to avoid unequal standards and victimization. Make available psychological support to victims who experience emotional trauma. Sexual harassment. GPU and the media outlets shall create a safe space for media workers to report sexual harassment in a confidential manner to the highest extent possible. Reporting sexual harassment. Anyone who is subject to sexual harassment should, without delay, inform the alleged harasser that the conduct is unwanted, unwelcome, and should stop. In the event the harasser did not stop his or her acts of sexual harassment, or the victim could not inform the harassers to stop, the victim should seek to formally lodge a complaint through the following process. Oh, okay. Seek to formally lodge. R is FORMALLY. If the victim wishes to deal with the matter informally, the designated person at GPU or the media house will give an opportunity to the alleged harasser to respond to the complaint, ensure that the alleged harasser understands the complaint's mechanism, facilitate discussion between both parties to achieve an informal resolution which is acceptable to the complainant, or refer the matter to a designated mediator to resolve the matter. Ensure that a confidential record is kept of what happens. Follow up after the outcome of the complaints mechanism to ensure that the behavior has stopped. Ensure that the above is done speedily and within 7 days of the complaint being made. If the victim wants to make a formal complaint, or if the informal complaint mechanism has not led to a satisfactory outcome for the victim, the formal complaint mechanism should be used to resolve the matter. That the designated person who initially received the complaint will refer the matter to the GPU focal point to institute a formal investigation. Good. Formal written complaints mechanism. Complaints will be submitted as soon as possible after an incident has occurred, preferably in writing. The complainant can send by email, the complaint can send by email to sexualmisconduct@gpu.org.
Can be sent.
Yes. So put the can be there. Yeah. Accessible to person or persons who understands the degree of confidentiality required in.
Sorry. I think you need to correct what I you have the confidential complaint form.
Confidentiality required, including the designated GPU person. The sexual harassment focal point may assist the complainant in completing a written statement. The complaint can also be sent by mailing address to the GPU with the address New Alignment Area, Fajara PO Box 1440, Banjul, The Gambia. The mail will be addressed to the GPU Welfare and Gender Committee written in capital letters to on the envelope. Complaint by third party. A complaint can be reported by a third party, that is, a GPU member or a media professional who has observed a behavior he/she thinks is sexual harassment and is offended by the incident or behavior. The third party can become a complainant even if the perceived victim does not make a complaint, and the third party confirms and maintains there is an issue of sexual harassment. Hardship, loss, benefit, or penalty may be imposed on any GPU member or media worker in response to filing or responding to a bona fide complaint of sexual harassment, appearing as a witness in the investigation of a complaint, serving as an investigator of a complaint. Lodging a bona fide complaint will in no way be used against the union member or media professional or have an adverse impact on the individual status in the union. However, filing groundless or malicious complaints is an abuse of this policy and will be treated as a violation. Confidentiality. All complaints and investigations are treated confidentially to the extent possible, and information is disclosed strictly on a need-to-know basis. The identity of the complainant is usually revealed to the parties involved during the investigation and the GPU focal point, and later in the process, the committee will take adequate steps to ensure that the complainant is protected from retaliation during and after the investigation. Procedures to hear and address sexual harassment. GPU establishes the following procedures for hearing and addressing a complaint of sexual harassment. At the level of the GPU, Sexual Harassment Unit. The GPU shall establish a sexual harassment unit within its Welfare and Gender Committee to be headed by an appointed sexual harassment focal point. The person shall have enough understanding of sexual misconduct in all of its aspects and be able to handle appropriately and in confidentiality any sexual harassment behavior he/she will have to deal with. The executive will recommend 2 people who will sit at this ad hoc committee. In identifying the best suited individual to sit in the committee to complement the Sexual Harassment Committee of the WISE, GPU executive member and advisory committee member, the GPU executive can discuss the outlines of the case, preserving the confidentiality of the case in a reasonably possible manner. A sexual harassment case. Complaint. A formal or informal complaint or being notified of a violation of this policy by a focal point in a media house or organization, the GPU sexual harassment focal point will notify the GPU executive and review the complaint with the GPU Welfare and Gender Officer and the GPU Secretary General or President. A formal or informal complaint or being notified of a violation of this policy by a focal point in a media house or organization, The GPU Sexual Harassment Focal Point will notify the GPU. Complainant has fully filled the form. The GPU Sexual Harassment Focal Point will request that the GPU executive summon a committee of the WISE who will initiate an investigation to determine whether there is a reasonable basis for believing that the alleged violation of this policy occurred. During the investigation, the committee will interview the complainant, the respondent, and any witnesses to determine whether the alleged conduct occurred. The GPU Sexual Harassment Focal Point will remind the alleged victim and alleged harasser of the provisions of the policy before the interview. The minutes of the different interviews will be compiled. All communications, discussions, and information relating to the case will be treated as confidential and maintained in a secure location. Yeah. Are we having a save for that? The role of the committee of the WISE is to facilitate the process and investigate, as well as make a series of recommendations to the GPU executive to address the type of misconduct at hand. The Gender and Welfare Committee will share the outcome of the investigation and the recommendations with the GPU executive and with both the alleged victim and the alleged harasser. GPU has the responsibility to take prompt and appropriate action to eliminate both harassment and prevent it before it becomes pervasive. Any reported allegations of harassment or retaliation will be reviewed and acted upon appropriately. Final decision based on the outcome of the investigation will also be shared with both the alleged victim and the alleged harasser. If it is determined that a violation of this policy has occurred, the committee, that is the Gender and Welfare Committee, will recommend appropriate action as outlined under the sanctions of the policy. The appropriate action will depend on the following factors: the severity, frequency, and pervasiveness of the conduct, prior complaints made by the complainant, prior complaints made against the respondent, and the quality of the evidence. Example, first-hand knowledge, credible corroboration. That's it. The complainant, alleged victim, and the respondent, alleged harasser, can appeal the decision of the Gender and Welfare Committee. This appeal shall be submitted 1 week, 7 calendar days after receiving the outcome of the initial complaint. Any appeal automatically suspends the implementation of the recommendations by the GPU executive. The committee will convene to review and discuss the report and the appeals. It will schedule a date to hear both the complainant and respondent. It will also give the complainant and respondent the opportunity to present information, rebut evidence, and present witnesses. In cases involving allegations of sexual assault, the parties will not be allowed to directly question each other, and questions shall be provided to the committee for presentation. The committee is expected to provide a final decision at least 2 weeks, 14 calendar days after the appeal, and at most 4 weeks, 30 calendar days after receiving and reviewing the appeal. At the level of media house organization, the executive shall closely work with media houses and media organizations through information sessions, trainings, and lobbying to encourage media houses and organizations to set up sexual harassment unit at their level for the effective implementation of this policy. Such a unit will work in close partnership with the GPU Sexual Harassment Focal Point. The unit will comprise a media professional working within the media house, a manager, and a person from the human resources section of the media house. The GPU Sexual Harassment Unit will train all members of the media houses unit on how to handle sexual harassment complaints. Creating a safe work environment, a GPU member or media professional should know their rights and responsibilities at the workplace and in the work environment, know what an unacceptable behavior is, know what to do when one or someone else is being sexually harassed, know that one can ask the harasser to stop and the behavior is unwelcome, know what to do if one is being accused of sexual harassment. Sanctions against sexual harassment. Anyone found to have sexually harassed another person under the terms of this policy is liable for any of the following sanctions. The nature of the sanctions will depend on the gravity and extent of the harassment as determined by the Gender and Welfare Committee following investigation. Suitable deterrence sanctions will be applied to ensure that incidents of sexual harassment are not treated as trivial. In some cases of sexual harassment where the investigation has determined, in agreement with the parties involved, that the conciliation is a favored approach to resolve the case in hand. The harasser will have to write a formal apology to the victim, promising to end any sexual harassing behaviors. On the other hand, the GPU sexual harassment focal point will draft a written warning letter addressed to the harasser and signed by the GPU Secretary General or President. Suspension from GPU. Okay.
So, harassment focal point will draft a warning letter. Letter is obviously written. How about the Secretary General? A written warning letter.
As Mr. Jahate mentioned, I am Mr. Abdullah Jeng, the Director of Operations, IEC. I am with my Deputy, Esa Balde. We are here to conduct the election or to fill the vacant positions of the GPA. That is predominantly the position of the Vice President and that of an ordinary member. So this is the communication, and we are here for that effect. Why are we here? We are mandated to conduct national elections, but we take it as our tradition to sell the idea of democracy by helping institutions and organizations to have internal democracy, to adapt the practice of internal democracy so that when they are down there or up there, they can embrace the values of democracy. So this is one of the sensitization that we do offer to institutions. So I mentioned that when we were invited, we have maybe one or two concerns we want to raise with the Congress, but the organizing committee is in line with the constitution of the GPU, because all that they've done is based on your constitution. But nevertheless, as election experts, we used to advise organizations on best practice. It doesn't mean that certain legal instruments are not best practice or they are not legal, but as we are growing, you know, we tend to discover best practices. So what do I want to mention? I say we would advise an organization when they are, or when they want to conduct an election, they may have election committee, internal, you know, committee, body that would do nomination, voting, and election. Because, why am I mentioning it? This, the segment of nomination is not given to the election body, whether it's internal or external. But the Constitution says you have to go through a particular procedure. You have to apply through the Secretary General, and you have to fulfill this thing for a given period, and this and that, which is legal. But we are saying it's not best practice. Let the electoral body, even if it is internal, the organization itself, let them conduct nomination up to the declaration of results, because nomination is part and parcel of an electoral mandate. So therefore, even if you are going to also invite an outside body like the IEC, which the Constitution spell out, still you have to give that body the whole mandate. In the event you want to leave it within the organization, the committee, the electoral committee, can do those functions and invite IEC as an observer, or even we can be co-opted. We have no problem. Why am I mentioning this? So the next Congress, which would be maybe in the next 9 months, when you are looking or reviewing your constitution, you may take some electoral, considerations. Either you invite IEC or you send us some of your sections so that we can help in, adjusting, some of the elements. But nevertheless, what you have in your constitution is legal, and the organizing committee have done the right thing. And also, we are going to follow strictly what is legal, and what is legal is what is in the constitution. So briefly, I'm going to ask my deputy to mention 5 points, to fresh your memory as to what we are coming to, what the organizing committee have done and what we are coming to do. So, Mr. Balde, just section part 5.
Yeah, part 5, electoral system and polling officers. Section 22 of the Constitution of GPU. Number 4 says, number 5. The union may engage the services of the Independent Electoral Commission, or IEC, for the purposes of conducting elections and announcing results of election of the executive committee members. Section 22, number 0.5, mention this. Number 6 says, anyone who wishes to vie for any elective position within the GPU shall declare his or her candidature to the Secretary General at least 2 weeks before Congress or AGM. That's another section of the part 5. Number 7 says, the Secretariat shall publish names of eligible candidates 1 week before Congress or AGM. Number 8, any member who wishes to object to the candidature of shall do so 1 week before Congress or AGM. Number 9 of the same part says the Secretariat shall publish the voter list at least 5 working days before Congress or AGM. The section concludes. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Balda. So far so good. Apparently, this is what is in the Constitution. The organizing committee have done the right thing up to this level, and here we are invited to continue the rest of the process. When we came, we asked for the materials that we are supposed to be presented, and we got the materials. We are given the hard, copies of the applications, those who applied for the various positions. As I mentioned, we were invited for 2 positions. One is the position of the Vice President. The second one is the position of ordinary member. So far so good. We've also, noticed late application according to the Constitution. The materials given to us, a specific time was given for application, and 2 weeks were given for the notice of the application. 1 week after the announcement of those who applied, 1 week is given for criticism or scrutiny of the candidates who applied. Then after 1 week, the candidates who apply are published. So we've collected all the information in relation to that. We've also collected the register, and the organizing committee have done the right thing. So to proceed, so I would also acknowledge the express interest of other candidates But unfortunately, the application came late. Like some 2 days back, we have the like of Usman A. Marong applied. That is Tuesday, the 22nd of December. The application was done 10:53 point, that is the minutes. 10 in the morning and 53 minutes. That was Usman A. Marong. Keita Aisat also expressed interest, but unfortunately too, she was late. She applied 2 days back, which was Tuesday, 22nd December. That is 11:16 in the morning also. So I would like to acknowledge their interest of expression, but except that, the application came late when, nomination was already closed. So usually a specific time is given for nomination, even at national level. So after that time, even if you send your application, it would not be honored because it would be illegal if it should be considered. So far so good. Those who applied, it was only one person applied for the position of Vice President. We've got also the application and the evidence. You see, Mohamed S. Jallo applied for the position of Vice President. Esba rather, sorry, correction. Mohamed Esba, let me repeat myself. Mohamed Esba applied for the position of Vice President. You see, on the 30th of November, 2020, not even in December, it's some 3 weeks back when he applied, meaning that he applied on time. So traditionally, election is contested more than one candidate, and in the event that only one person applied, the electoral committee or the body in charge of election would be obliged going through the credentials of the candidate and found it qualified to announce the candidature of that individual. On that note, election of the executive of the Gambia Press Union, declaration of results. I, Mr. Abdullah Jeng, having supervised the election of the executive of the Gambia Press Union, hereby giving notice that the total number of votes given to each candidate as follows. Position of Vice President was filled in by Mohamed Esba, and he was the only one unopposed. I hear that is the position of Vice President. Ordinary member, unfortunately, nobody applied. So it is new. So the vacancy remains vacant. I hereby declare that the name above have been duly elected to serve in the executive board of the office of the Gambia Press Union. That is Mohamed Esba. Dated 24th.
Yeah, it is indeed a great honor and privilege to be given the trust by my colleagues to be the next Vice President of the Gambia Press Union. This is indeed a great honor and privilege. As your Vice President-elect, I will like to thank everyone, each and every one of you, especially my team. I had a team that was supporting me, and I would definitely like to also thank all journalists that encourages me or who encouraged me to come on board and then, take this mantle of leadership. I believe we know GPU is an advocacy union to advocate for the welfare of journalists and to ensure that the welfare of journalists are respected. I believe I can contribute in no small measure towards the development of this noble union. My task as your vice president is to ensure inclusiveness in the sense that I will make sure, my intention is to make sure journalists embrace this union and then ensure that opportunities are created to all journalists, despite which media you are from, or you, as a freelance or a media practitioner. Another important thing that I will consider as your vice president is we understand that the Gambia is coming to a crucial moment. We know 2021 is an election year. And then this year, or 2021, journalists will be very busy. My task is to ensure that politicians understand the importance of the work of journalists and things that has been happening before, that journalists are being bullied, journalists being, being attacked by supporters of politicians. We will ensure that, that is tackled. Because we know that obviously 2021 will be a busy year for journalists as well as the political landscape. So this one is something that I really intend to definitely achieve, to ensure that probably we engage the politicians and then see how best we can protect journalists during their work. And then another important thing is to strengthen transparency, and accountability. We understand that the Gambia Press Union is the press union for journalists. It's the press union for media workers. And then as journalists, we are here to hold the government accountable. But it is important, us as journalists, to be accountable to each other. So I will ensure, my intention is to ensure accountability in the press union. I know there is accountability, but it's just a matter of strengthening it to ensure that most of the things that GPU is doing is known to the journalist, how they spend monies on issues. Probably if I am allowed as the vice president, this is part of my agenda. Inclusiveness, protection of journalists, and also promotion of welfare of journalists, and accountability and transparency. I know I have few mandates, like my mandate is just 3 months, but this is my intention, and I'm also urging for your support as journalists, and also thanking each and every one of you for the support. Thank you so much.
If you want to receive monies from UK, Europe, USA, Canada, Switzerland, and the rest of the world, Supersonic's money transfer has got you covered. With the largest payout network in the Gambia, you can now receive your monies anywhere you are, from Kartong to Koina, with less hassle. Yes! You can receive monies from your family and friends in UK, Europe, USA, Canada, Switzerland, and the rest of the world with our safe, secure, fast, and convenient service that offers you the largest selection of payout locations in the Gambia. Supersonic's money transfer. We are currently in 34 African countries and counting, giving you quality money remittance services that are second to none. Visit the Google Play Store or the Apple Store today to download the Supersonics Money Transfer app and enjoy excellent money transfer services only with Supersonics.
Dalba!
Aho! Moro!
Bari biba ma diari mbakel.
Konkoto murkoto le konkoto futo koto purkoto mo.
Muto nyaade man nin kolko. Sila koto wakata sate koto.
Prince Kuyate le mamanta nan entertainment. Wala be bemba kala semega jane wori ka fa me kora awo. Kala purata enti. Mbe korontoro kan ala karam fa janni woni.
Yenyun kora bemba min da kanake Gambia jang. Sato dao da tata jen kama de ka fo kora awo. Amma kan man ten kunno banko ka. Iko banko nyaton ko min keta Adama Baroti anala numonyo first lady.
Fatma baba.
Ye nyim ben kere sika ya ditel la ka nyaton ko. Amadou Kora wo fanam be jele don. Ajaratu Fatu Sonko bakaw.
Kora mansa.
Ni ajebe kumbola tumbun ko to salon ko dali ko lewon le sabu. Kora man to bi fenti.
Baraka.
Ha.
Ngo batar la be on.
Mbeje ko dura anda mu be mele neti.